Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's Talking Tim webinar. My name is Kevin Vita, and I'll be helping facilitate today's webinar. Before we get into our main presentations, I have a couple of items I'd like to bring to your attention. NOCO has an upcoming webinar that may be of interest to this Tim audience. It is the second in a planned special events spotlight webinar series, taking place on Thursday, March 6th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and will be hosted by David Johnson, the Managing Disruptions to Operations team leader. The webinar will feature two presenter teams. First, Sal Cowan and Elizabeth Falcon with the New Jersey Department of Transportation will spotlight the New York and New Jersey FIFA World Cup planning. Next will be Thomas Snyder and Natalie Jones-Best with the District of Columbia's Department of Transportation, who will speak to the 2025 presidential inauguration from planning through post-event debrief. Sorry. Also, we have a photo request for our audience. An upcoming publication needs a photograph that illustrates routing for a planned special event, something like the image shown. We kindly ask you to take a moment to look through your photos and share with us an image like the one here. We will attribute your agency or you as the photo source in this publication. Please share your photo with me, Kevin Vita, at the email shown by this Friday. Now we'll kick off our normal Talking Tim webinar. This webinar is sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration and hosted by the National Operations Center of Excellence, also known as NOCO. As a quick reminder, NOCO offers a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. Now I'll cover a few logistics for today's webinar. All of the attendees are in listen-only mode by default, but we'd like you to stay engaged by using the chat box for identifying yourself and the agency you represent. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentations, so we encourage you to ask any questions you have during the presentations in the Q&A pod as they come to your mind at any time. The questions will be read out loud one at a time by the moderator, and our presenters will answer the question. I would also like to state that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording and slide deck will be available on the NOCO website within a few days. So that's all I have, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to our Master of Ceremonies for today, Joe Tebow.
Thank you, Kevin, Master of Ceremonies. How about that? Hey, greetings, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We know your time's precious, but we've got a lot of really great things to share with you. As Kevin said, please drop your questions as they come to mind into the chat there, and we'll get to addressing them a little bit later on in the presentation. So today we have two great guests with us. We'll start off with Darcy Bullock, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few months back, and he's got a great presentation. Darcy's the Lowles Family Professor of Civil and Construction Engineering at Purdue University. He serves as the director of the Joint Transportation Research Program, which is known as the JTRP. Dr. Bullock's a registered professional engineer in Indiana, has over 30 years of experience working closely with academia, transportation agencies, private sector partners in the areas of transportation systems and big data analytics. I don't want to chase you off with that part, right? Because this is great stuff. With that said, Dr. Bullock, I'm going to bring you on, and don't forget, folks, to drop your questions in the chat there, and passing it on off to you, Doc. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, just confirm you can see my slide good?
I can.
Okay, good. Hey, great to see you again. Got a photo of you in the presentation. So what I thought we'd do, we got about 20 minutes. The big data analytics, I would say, kind of subtitle that, I would say a picture book approach to incident management. I like graphics, and so what I'm going to do is kind of talk a little bit about the team behind the presentation, some stats and what we've done. Big picture message on incident management after actions is, I would say, do more good ones and do them frequently, because there's some good stories to share out there, and then learn from the less good ones. So I always start out these presentations with a team introduction. I pulled together a collection of slides that several people here have helped me with. And Joe, I think you had a chance to meet just about all of these folks when you were with us in Indianapolis. And Joe put a picture of you and Grady in here from that October 30th workshop. You're there in the blue shirt there, and I guess day one there in the audience. So before I kind of go into some of the details, we do after actions on a weekly basis. And just looking over the last year, I had Miles pull some stats, and we've done 151 after actions distributed there. Most of them crashes, but it's a variety of other incidents. I'm going to go through a couple of those today just to show what we're doing in that after action space. And I would say, as we're talking through after actions, I mean, there's a lot of folks that do after actions out there. I've got flashing up in the lower right corner just a video of, it's a little bit like a Where's Waldo of Where's the Hoosier Helper, the Motorist Assistance Patrol off on the side of the road responding to an incident. Vast majority of incidents out there are, like you just saw, maybe changing a flat tire, but then occasionally we have some fairly significant ones. Probably the messages that I want you to take away from today's TIM webinar is connected vehicle data is really valuable data for kind of filling in key pieces of information. Also, snapshots and the images you're seeing on the screen there in the lower right, we record images about every 2 minutes, so just a snapshot. We find those to be incredibly valuable for kind of pulling out details. And then there's a variety of others. This commercial dash cams are coming on the scene, National Weather Service data. Crash reports, dispatch records, those are kind of traditional ones. Occasional USC imagery, and even audio recording we're starting to drop in now. So with that, I will now kind of jump into what I think is probably maybe our densest slide. Rahul helped put this one together. And it's showing kind of a picture book approach of cars traveling along a road over here, in this case, I-69, northeast of Indianapolis. Time is along the horizontal axis, mile markers along the vertical axis, and you can read off factoids on these things. You can certainly see over here when the incident starts. You can see when it ends. You can see how far back the queue extends. This blue circle, where we see no color or no vehicle trajectories there, that shows that the road is closed. We have a legend down here that shows the speed. So my quick way of reading these, I think Joe's heard me say this, green is good, reds and purples are less good. So you get a very quick, at a glance view of what time the incident started, what time it ended, and then spatially how far back it went. This particular road closure you see there happened at about 6:20, probably about just almost an hour in. As a 12-minute closure, and then you see when the road reopened. So I'm going to carry these heat maps in kind of a static form through the rest of the presentation, but I hope you'll kind of remember these key points on being able to extract out how far back it went, and then that total duration. Those are valuable performance metrics that we pull out that can map into some of the TIM stuff. The other thing I want to talk about here is I'm going to give very Indiana-centric examples, but this scales nationwide. We have a pool fund study going on. We routinely every week do after actions in our pool fund state partners, and we do these heat maps every single week with truck data. Debbie Horton is going to drop in the chat a couple of the LinkedIn links Here's a weather event that impacted Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee. Here's one that Gerarge put together that impacted several states along I-70 all the way down and pulled in some dash cam images. And then this is a post that Rahul put together looking at work zone striping. The foundation of most of these after actions that we do is connected vehicle data. Connected trucks are used quite regularly. We've ingested about 84 billion connected truck data over the last couple years. Just to give you an idea of what 1 minute of connected truck data looks like in the US. And I pulled this just a few minutes ago. Missouri, I-70, typical section of I-70 has 6,000 trucks a week. That's 36 trucks an hour, or about a truck every 2 minutes. And we can do even better with connected vehicle data. The reason that is important is it really helps us pull out those key TIM performance measures. When did the incident occur? The awareness of it, the verification, all the way down to not only when the last responder left the scene, but when traffic flow resumes or returns. Many times that T0 and T7 are really hard to get, but we can, with connected vehicle data, get that. With connected truck data, usually within about 2-minute accuracy. With connected car data, sub-minute accuracy. So now I'm going to talk about a couple examples, and one of the factoids I always like to talk about on interstates is crash rates go up by a factor of 24 when we have stopped traffic on the interstate. We always want to keep that front of the incident safe for first responders. We never want to compromise safety at the scene, but every minute counts on restoring traffic, because bad things can happen at the back of the queue. And this is a after action that Rahul put together a couple years ago on I-70. Actually, my daughter was in the back of the queue, not involved in any of these incidents, but I was nervous dad waiting for her to arrive as I knew there was an incident unfolding out there. And I'll just kind of show you in connected vehicle data, and then I will show you some images on how we visualize these after actions. And this one, not at all uncommon. We had a engine or a car fire, that first circle, and then we had a secondary crash. And kind of the punchline is the secondary crash was much more severe than the simple car fire. Pulled the traditional CAD reports, et cetera, crash reports, and put together stats on it. Pulled together the crash report. But this is what I really want to take you through, kind of that unfolding incident. And I'm going to bring this black line is going to kind of move across this heat map. So if we see right here, it's 9:16 a.m. This is the screen scrape, also corresponds to our timestamp on the camera. You can see the engine fire in this truck, mostly on the shoulder. It's in a work zone, a little bit problematic. And you can see vehicles have stopped for an assist. You can see white. There's no vehicles moving right there. No data is information. Few vehicles may be wiggling around that. 9:18. No first responders on the scene yet. Cars are still going along. 9:20. 9:22. We see the first fire engine on scene. You can see you can actually see on here. You can see the hoses out, and you can just, if you compare, you see the black smoke. Joe, it'll jump out to you. You see the white smoke, so you know they got water on the fire. This point, fire's probably substantially out. If you recall, that vehicle is on the shoulder. Again, never want to second guess this. first, you always want first responder safety, but once you've got the fire out and everybody's safe, then you really do want to be thinking about, okay, what can we do to kind of restore traffic? And we'll see some activity here. Starting to pull back. 9:36, so we're 20 minutes in or so now. Hoses are all picked up at this point. Probably an opportunity. You got some cars doing some U-turns. They've got the wrecker on scene. Both lanes are still closed. And now they have the vehicle on there and it's off. Scene was safe, nobody got hurt there, but the rest of the story here on this after action here is if we look at the back of the queue, we had an unfortunate high-speed collision at the back of the queue, almost at the point of recovery. So here we had a rear impact crash with stop traffic. These are the ones where you can have quite severe injuries. You got traffic traveling, pick your number, 60, 70 miles an hour, impacting the rear of a vehicle. If we had taken 9 minutes, we'd taken 9 minutes off that lane closure, maybe got one lane open when they were doing the recovery. Just 9 minutes of impact of that would have precluded having stopped traffic at that time of incident. So again, not trying to second guess, don't have all the details. It's just, I use this point to say minutes count out there on that response to an incident, because you always want to keep the incident safe, but you also want to be thinking about what other incidents might be happening that could have additional impact. I'll move on to a second one. This one is in the Indianapolis area, I-65. Miles put this together. This was a car fire, fairly similar type scenario. If you see here, 2 fire engines in. I've kind of done the abbreviated version on this one. Just arriving there, you see the black smoke. So this is the ITS camera image kind of from the start of this. Trucks off the shoulder of the road, black smoke, flames visible. Attempt to get the fire out there, probably not enough juice in the fire extinguisher. Fire resumes. Fire department's on scene. 8:21, and within 2 minutes, that the fire is out. Very quick cleanup out of there. Back up just a little bit. You've got the Hoosier helper right here. You'll see in a second that additional fire engine clears. That lane is open, so now they have 2 lanes flowing. And the fire department's gone. State police is out there, and then traffic's restored, and then subsequently there's the wrecker comes along and recovers. Arguably a very good response. These are the sorts of after actions we do all the time. Like I said, there's many good success stories out there. We find these to be very helpful. I use these all the time in class, sharing with students on this, but I also, we're trying to put together a library of these on the various types so that agencies have them for after action review. I'll do one last one. This is a bridge slide off, icy bridge slide off Miles put together in the Indianapolis area. This one, a little bit of a lesson learned on this one because the vehicle was entangled in a median cable barrier, and it took a little bit of time to get out there to release the cable. Section of road, you can see after a light snow. If you look right there where Miles has got that arrow pointing right there is the vehicle. We actually had the camera positioned so we can see that it out there, and really didn't have too much of an impact initially. You can on traffic, you can see there is snow's right up to the edge line there, right on a curve. This is one where good lesson on this one is these median cable barriers absolutely save lives, but they are a little bit of a challenge for first responders and tow trucks when vehicles get tangled up in them. This one took a little bit longer to respond to because they had to get staff out to release the cable. But I'll just kind of step through this. State police stops, and then this is on a curve. Again, really good emergency response by the Hoosier Helper. Again, these guys do a lot of good work every single day that they don't always get recognized for. It's kind of fun. I showed this one at INDOT a couple days later, and the guy that was actually working that Saturday says, I responded to that scene. So I'll tell you, Joe, there is nothing like positive reinforcement when you can share these kind of stories with some of the staff that are doing this day in, day out. Good job protecting the scene. He's got the cones out. A little distorted here because it's a long camera zoom on this one. And then I'll step through, again, this incident went on a little bit longer than maybe was ideal because there was a safety issue with getting that vehicle released because it was tangled up in the cable median barrier. And then they ultimately get the vehicle out of there. And then the scene is cleared. So I'm going to kind of wrap up right now, and I'm just going to give you one glimpse of the future. I got about 2 minutes left on my talk. I talked about the key data elements here. I can't emphasize enough how important we find these images. We capture them every 2 minutes. We don't record video from the TMC, but we snap them every 2 minutes. Those are good enough for kind of providing that Memorex rollback, what actually happened out there beyond the traditional crash reports and dispatch records. The other thing, the new frontier that we're now working on is, I'm going to pause here for a second, and you're going to hear this audio. We now record the dispatch channel for the INDOT Traffic Management Center, so we can record the audio. And I'm just doing a couple audio clips that you should be able to hear on this. So I'll pause, and you'll hear me step through. I've got the narrative on the right.
On Indy TMC 1050 interrupt. Go ahead. 865 eastbound on the right lane. I've got a passenger vehicle sideways. ISP started as a PI. Report to the driver's passed out. I do see the driver in the vehicle moving.
So really,
8321.
I'm 1023 with the right lane. Indy TMC, is it going?
87.
1051 has the visual traffic control. All units at 10-8, all lanes are open.
so with that, I might just pause right here. And I guess my parting comment is, I hope I gave you a good view of how we're using some of these different data elements. I can't emphasize enough, do more good after actions, share those success stories. The first responders are proud of them, and they make absolutely outstanding training opportunities. And then I think it makes it easier to learn the lessons from ones where maybe they were maybe a little less good and there were opportunities to improve. So Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Darcy. Great presentation. You know, I'm one of those folks that when people start talking data, my eyes kind of glaze over a little bit, you know. But when you did this for us back in Indiana, that I perked up and I was like, you know what? That's really great stuff. That is really great stuff. After action reviews, training, multiple uses. So thanks to you and your team. because I know you've got a great support team, and I got to meet those folks, as you said, while we were at that workshop. And yeah, really great stuff. So it's the story behind the story, and what data can really do for you. So thanks, Doc. I greatly appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And folks, remember, if you have questions, right, drop them in the chat there, and we'll address them. And Darcy will hang on, and we'll just roll right on in to our next presenter, who is another great champion of traffic incident management, Jason Decembri. Jason's the director of the Maryland State Highway Administration Office of Transportation Mobility and Operations Office. It's home to the agency's TIM, TMC, ITS programs. So Jason's been doing this for over 20 years, traffic incident management operations. Previously, he served as division chief of the State Highway Administration's TMC operations. Jason is a champion for the use of data in real-time operations, and serves as MDOT's, Maryland Department of Transportation's representative on the TMC and Safety Service Patrol pooled fund studies, and the Eastern Transportation Coalition Highway Operations Group, and the AASHTO Committee on Transportation System Operations. So with all of that said, another great champion for traffic incident management. Jason, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. And so, as Joe said, I love data. So as Darcy was talking, I was all into it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to connect again with some good friends and peers I see in the chat here. You can go ahead to the start of my presentation there, Kevin. I want to start by echoing, you go to the next slide. I want to start by echoing something that Darcy said. So the reason I'm showing the mission of our office here is because I think sometimes in our teams, in our agencies, when we talk about quick clearance and reducing these elements of the TIM timeline, I think it can sometimes get lost that it really is about safety and not about mobility. A lot of times they think, our teams do, that it's about getting that lane open so traffic can get moving, of why we're emphasizing quick clearance. But really, we're doing that because we want everyone to get safe. We know that old statistic we hear all the time in TIM training, that for every minute a lane is closed, it increases the probability of a secondary crash by 2.8%. So you can figure, you get above 30 minutes, close to 35, you're going to be at about 100% likelihood there of that crash. So just want to echo that everything I'm going to talk about today, we're trying to do it in the interest of improving safety, both for our responders on the scene and also for the motorists on the highway. Next slide. Just for those who may not be as familiar with Maryland's Coordinated Highways Action Response Team, that is the name of our Safety Service Patrol or Emergency Traffic Patrol, whatever your name for the program is in your state. We patrol about 930 linear miles of Maryland's interstates and U.S. routes. That actually is about 2,500 or so lane miles, if you were to calculate it. We have a lot of interstates that are 4 lanes. And you'll notice that there are some uncovered areas here. So at far western Maryland, connecting to our friends in West Virginia, no permanent patrols. We will, of course, go out that way to assist. And then our lower area of Maryland near Ocean City, connecting to Delaware and Virginia, we do not have permanent patrols. We do have 3 regional traffic operations centers, or traffic management centers, you may call them, in your state, and 1 statewide operations center that is open 24/7, 365, as well as our toll facility peer agency has 2 centers of their own, and I'll bring them back up further on in the presentation. So let's start with the first innovation that we're implementing in our state. Next slide. Debris removal systems. So obviously we're not first to the game here. Many of you on the call here may be implementing these systems or a similar one in your DOT. But the system that we took a look at was the lane blade system. There are others out there. JAWS comes to mind, and some others. But what I want to talk about is the unique way we went about doing it. So funding was an issue, and how we were going to get these deployed on our trucks. And also, you know, we had never done this before. And what type of SOPs do we need to come up with? How do we actually use these? And is this system of benefit compared to another system, right? So what we did is we actually put in for a research project through our research department downtown, which allowed us to procure 2 of these lane blade devices to install in our trucks. And then we had the University of Maryland actually be the research entity that was doing this. So there was a formal paper published. If anyone attended TRB this year, there was a poster session on this research that was done, which I'll talk a little bit about here. Next slide. So one of the things that our operations team was a little bit concerned about, so on the left is the initial configuration for the lane blade system. And I guess I should also, for those who may not be familiar with the lane blade system, it's essentially a push bumper that has hydraulics on it, so it will lower to the pavement, and the wings of the push bumper will fold inward to try to capture debris on the roadway. But the initial development configuration of the lane blade system has a metal edge on the bottom there. If you look to the left, you'll see it in red. One of the things that our operations team was concerned about were things like drainage grates or bridge joints. As they went across from them, you know, our ERTs, our emergency response technicians, who are those that, you know, fill the SSP trucks, aren't necessarily always going to be thinking about lifting it up like they're driving a snowplow while they're trying to capture this debris. So one of the things we wanted to look at is, well, what would happen if we were to put a rubber edge blade on it, which is what you see on the right, compared to that metal blade? And was there a difference in the capture rate with the metal edge versus the rubber edge? It's the same edge that we have on our snowplows, on our trucks. So we did look at that, and I'll talk a little bit about those results. But, you know, that's not the only thing we wanted to look at. Next slide. What about the different types of roadway conditions that we would be working in, and the size of the debris that we'd be looking at? So it was a very, very detailed effort. So we did small crushed stone, large crushed stone. You can see there in the middle, we did motorcycles, like large, I'm going to call that debris, but large items, and also like your normal types of things you may see that are more frequent, like pieces of lumber, pieces of metal of average size. I do want to point out on the picture on the far left, we did actually go and do this in the snow. No, we are not attempting to be a snowplow here, and the lane blade manufacturer will tell you it is not rated to do so. Yes, because we're Chart, we did ask that question, and it is not rated to push snow. If you can see it a little bit towards the middle of the lane blade there, some pieces of metal and wood that we're trying to push there. And then we also tried at different speeds and different grades of slope. So we tried 5, 10, 15, and then 20 mile per hour capture speeds to see what the most effective speed was. And we found out that somewhere between 5 and 10 miles an hour was the sweet spot, and the steeper the slope, the least effective, which might surprise you because you think you might have a good angle there to give you some momentum. But that then influences our SOP to create for the people that will be using these devices. But the next innovation, you go to the next slide, was actually an expansion of an existing partnership we have with the Maryland State Police. So we have a very long history with the Maryland State Police. We actually already do fund a portion of their crash team. So we fund their crash team callouts, all in the interest of getting the lanes open sooner. When they first started their crash reconstruction using UAS, we funded that innovation for them. And then we also already sponsored the state police motor unit. What we were finding is that, especially in our metro areas, the local barracks just didn't have the personnel to keep up with the number of crashes that they had to respond to. And while we have an MOU with the Maryland State Police that allows us to relocate vehicles out of the roadway without a trooper being on scene, so long as the duty officer gives the okay, and we can get that via shared radio channels, there were still some major crashes that we weren't able to get a trooper to. I just lost the slides. Did everyone else on the call lose the slides?
Yeah, Jason, I lost them here.
I'll wait. Kevin, do you need me to, let me know if you need me to share.
I think he's starting to share again.
There you go.
There we go. Cool. We're finding that we weren't able to get troopers there as quickly as we would like for these major crashes where the trooper has to look at the scene, and, you know, for major personal injury crashes or, God forbid, fatalities, and major crashes with commercial vehicles, for example, to give us permission to get the vehicles out of the road. So we partnered with state police to actually create a dedicated unit to take that motor unit and actually also turn them into this TIM unit. And what makes this a little bit unique than some other states like New Jersey and others that have dedicated TIM units, their daily communication is not with their local police barrack. Their daily communication, barring any law enforcement need, is with our traffic management centers. So it is not the state police dispatcher that's sending them to calls, it is our TMC. And then once they get on scene, if they have a law enforcement action they need to take, say a vehicle storage, or they need a crash report done, things like that, then they will switch over to whoever's local barrack that is, and communicate with them. So that was an innovation. We have seen an improvement there. And if anything, too, it gives us troopers that are experienced in traffic incident management there with our SSP units, rather than having to solely rely on the state police barrack. And it's actually been a benefit for the state police as well, because then that's less burden on those local barrack troopers. Next slide. So we have deployed Haas Alert onto all of our chart patrol trucks, as well as some other vehicles in the SHA fleet. What you see here is a shot of the dashboard for the back end of that Haas Alert system, and some statistics there. 18.3 minutes average on scene, I think, is pretty awesome. The number of drivers alerted, again, this is pulled, if you look at their back-end documentation, it's only capturing those drivers that they know can track, that have, like, say, a Waze app open on their phone where they can confirm that it's loaded. But the important point here is we have tied ours to the emergency lights on our chart trucks, and then for our shop trucks, our maintenance trucks, it's tied to their aero panel. So again, I know many other states are deploying this, but it does give our ERTs, our chart units on scene, a little bit of extra confidence that the motoring public approaching them is being told they're on scene. Maryland does have a move over law that requires you to move over or slow down for an emergency vehicle on the shoulder. And in fact, I believe it was 2 years ago, that law was updated to include any vehicle on the shoulder that has some type of signal or marking, similar to, I believe it's Pennsylvania's law that is similar. Next slide. This is new, not fully deployed yet. I'm going to credit North Carolina here for the picture I found through a news article for your deployment a few years back. But we are working to deploy UAS for incident management on our chart trucks. The focus right now is doing that on manager vehicles. So it is a very small deployment. It would only be through 4 of our current units. And the purpose in our world is sometimes, you know, we need to see back of queue, or really see what traffic's doing in a trapped queue, that even though we do have cameras on our chart trucks, we just don't have the sight distance that we need or desire for that particular incident. So we put in for a stick grant, about $80,000, and that gets us 1 drone. But we don't want to just rest on having the native browser for this drone. Our goal is to integrate that video into what we call our MView system. So that video sharing system allows all of our partner agencies to share their video with us and us with them on a web browser platform. That's actually managed now by the state police, although we helped launch it way back, I believe it was 2011, 2010-ish, when that initially kicked off. But this came to a head when we had, about a year ago, a major utility issue on Maryland Route 140. We had about 30 vehicles trapped under electric wires because of a tornado that touched down. And it just so happened that one of the crash team members who had a drone was doing some overtime working duty officer at the barrack that was literally there on that stretch of roadway. And they were able to fly their drone and stream that video through the native link, right? They shared it through a Google chat, but it was through the native link of that drone. And so we picked up that idea and said, well, hey, what if we could stream that drone footage through our MView system? So we are working to deploy UAS on our chart vehicles. Next slide. Sometimes I think when we talk about improving the TIM timeline and traffic incident management, we're very much so focused on the field response as we should be. But we sometimes, I think, need to look inward to our traffic management centers and think about what we can do on the TMC side to try to help either get resources there quicker, make sure the right resources are there, and that the people that are responding or may need to respond are aware of what the situation is. What you're looking at here is a new feature we deployed, I believe it was last year, in our ATMS, where based on all the information the operator's entering, so the incident type, the number of lanes that are closed, the responders and who they are that are on scene, the system automatically calculates the severity of that incident. Now I know that doesn't quite match the federal highway definition where it's based on time frame, right? Based on number of minutes or hours we expect the lanes to be closed. That's the next step, spoiler alert. But this is our first step at trying to give the operator some guidance in the severity of the incident. And then from this, the system will automatically make some suggestions on what it thinks the operator should do, whether that's who to send, the number of devices to activate, what those devices should say, and even notifications you should make through the system. Next slide. Speaking of those suggested actions, this is looking at our ATMS prior to 10 a.m. this morning, where the operator would have to ask the system. They could always select their response plan themselves and type the signs they want to use and manually activate them themselves. But they could also tell the system, hey, give me a suggestion here. Next slide. As of 10 a.m. this morning, now the system will automatically, just as the operator's doing their thing without even having to click it or tell the system rather to suggest the signs, it will make its suggestions based upon the pre-configured information, right? What is the severity of the incident and what is the linear miles away from that device? As you can see, though, some of the suggestions may not necessarily be the best message, or in some cases, like that middle one there, MUTCD compliant, especially depending on how far away that sign is from the incident. You can see right there, right, 2.48. So not the best message. The operator can still then copy that message over and then edit it. And the whole point is to try to save them some time to quickly advise the motorists of what they need to do, try to get motorists away from the incident scene and keep our responders safe, and hopefully keep more traffic away from queues so that there is not a secondary crash or a larger queue. Next slide. The other thing for the operator is, like all TMCs, I'm sure, sometimes, your turnover rate isn't the best. So how do you get new operators to visualize the travel path here? This is new. They can click a button and that pulls up a view where they can look at that particular sign. The blue line you see is the traveling path of the motorist from where they see the sign to where they get to the incident. So it's also a check for the operator to be able to make sure that that device is appropriate to use, that it's not for some reason, in the wrong direction or any weird configuration issue that might cause a improper device to be recommended. Next slide. Final thing from the TMC side, we require all of our operators for a major incident to send out, we call them ops emails, operations emails, that does dictate what is going on at the scene. This is a sample of an old one where you can see it is very text heavy. If I'm on my mobile phone and I am in the middle of trying to coordinate resources, it can be very hard for me to quickly figure out what is going on and what I need to look at. And also you'll see updates to follow. It lists a 4-digit number. That is the call sign for our unit. And then it lists a tag number. And the purpose of that is that the person who would get that email could look at that email, pull up that camera in the MView system and get an idea of what was happening at the scene. But again, very text heavy, not necessarily user friendly to those on mobile phones. So what we did, next slide, is try to make this a lot more of a graphical interface on the newer email. So I've copied and pasted. If you can picture, this is one long graphic you would get. I had to piece it together just so that it fit on the slide. But now it is very much so a graphic. If I'm on my phone and I click that little red pin you see next to collision personal injury, it pulls up a Google map with the traffic layer enabled. So I can see where that incident is. I can immediately see the traffic impact. I can quickly see what is involved. My lane graphic is staring me in the face, so I'm not having to read text. You'll see a small section above that lane graphic where the operator can type any additional information that isn't a static field. In this case, they're letting us know that aviation is going to land on northbound 270. And I can also quickly click on the MView link and get to that camera right away. If there were any publicly viewable cameras, so in this case, what I can see is there's no public available cameras. The only camera that can see this incident is an internal camera that is mounted to our truck. We do not share our truck cameras with the public. But I can click on that link and quickly get to that MView without having to type it myself. And then also the last thing, from an incident coordination standpoint, I can see who's already on scene. I can see who's been notified. In this particular case, there weren't any, but if there were anyone that were en route, that would be listed as well. So again, very quick way for us to analyze what is happening with our incident response. And the last thing I'll talk about on the very last slide, if you could move on, is our program evaluation. So this is not necessarily new to Maryland. We've been doing this since the onset of the program, but I want to tie this back to the very first point about the emphasis on safety. So to the left, you'll see the thing we usually tout as far as the benefit of the program. So every year we have the University of Maryland do an assessment of the program, where they calculate the amount of user delay costs that's saved, the amount of CO2 emissions that are saved, how much fuel consumption was saved, and they spit out a number. So you'll see there in 2023 calendar year, $2.2 billion with a B dollars in user cost savings that is saved. But you know, sometimes I don't think that really tells the best story, because what I think is more important is that safety impact. So to the right, what you'll see is they have also, for years, calculated the potential reduction in secondary collisions. Another section of the report will also reference a reduction in lane changing incidents. The lane changing incidents for 2023 was estimated to be over 1,000. I'm just showing here the secondary incident estimation, 427. And yes, I understand that some people will say, well, that's just a hypothetical number. You don't actually know that. You're right, I don't. But let's pretend that it's even a quarter of that, and one of those could have been a fatality. Are we really going to talk about the cost of one life that was saved, and likely more? So again, I just want to encourage everyone to be doing these types of evaluations for your program, not just for your own benefit to see how well you're doing, but also to sell that story in the benefit of why we need to do all these innovations that some people might say are bells and whistles and not necessarily quote unquote needed. But no, we need to get lanes open as quickly as possible. I go back to the lane blade. If you ask any of our responders, they would say that getting debris out of the road is one of the most dangerous things that they do. So it is not just a bell and a whistle. It helps keep our people safe, and it helps keep the motorists safe by not having that lane closed longer than we need to. I believe that's my last slide. And with that, I will toss it back to Joe.
Outstanding stuff, Jason, as always. I mean, just in the course of the two presentations, right, we've walked through quite a few of the elements of EDC 7, right? Next generation technology for saving lives. I mean, we've done advanced warning, drones, debris removal. You know, we're chasing that technology, but it's good to see that many of us have already wrangled it as it stands today, right? And just absolutely fantastic stuff. And I've worked with your folks, Jason, as you know, with the chart folks out there on the roadways, and they do a fantastic job. And as Darcy said earlier, right, it's great stuff to use, you know, to commend their efforts, right? And because they're often, you know, back in the shadows, you know, the recognition doesn't usually come their way as it should. All right, and the public just doesn't understand it, but it's all such great stuff to save lives. So thanks, Jason. Greatly appreciate all that you do. And we're going to take and pop a few questions here. I know there's been a couple in the chat there, and I think I'm Dr. Bullock. I think I'm going to pull this one for you, which is. How are you grabbing that heat map data? By what methods do you use to grab that your heat map data?
So Joe, good question on the heat map data. First of all, I'll preface this by saying we don't endorse any vendor, so I'm giving examples. Right now, there are two and a third dominant vendor merging. We use the Omnitrax truck data that gives us 50 state coverage for all of our state partners outside of Indiana. In Indiana, we use the street light connected vehicle data, which is passenger car data. It gives us a little bit better fidelity. And just most recently, in the last week or two, Compass IoT is a third vendor that is bringing in connected passenger car data that's probably got penetration a little bit better than Omnitrax, maybe not quite as strong as Streetlight, but there are 3 data sets out there that agencies can use. And I think the Maryland Cat Lab probably uses a couple of those as well.
Yeah, yeah, great, great. Oh, and while I have you there, the uh, your opinion and based on your experience, what are the variety of lessons that responders can learn from your after action reviews? What are the options available for states to obtain vehicle trajectory data?
So my opinion that where the value on this training comes is most of the large metropolitan urban first responders have very good awareness of the impact of quick clearance. I think what we're finding is getting those out to maybe rural volunteer fire departments that have a fair number of interstate runs. I think it's a good message. And whenever we can use connected vehicle data to show a run or a deployment in their area, it means a whole lot more than showing a case study from another state, another part of the state, or outside the state. So we like the connected vehicle data because it's very quick to do an after action that's relevant to the audience that you're engaging with.
Outstanding. Yeah, and I think there's a question in here about the privacy concerns and all, and I think you addressed some of that by saying you have 2-minute snapshots, right, that you use. Have you ever been pulled or dragged into any type of liability issues with that?
No, we have not. I'm knocking on wood on that, Joe. But I think there's so much of the media already scrapes these images. They're every 2 minutes and they're zoomed out. So to be honest, I've looked at thousands, if not tens of thousands of images. I have a hard time recalling any one image that would have been kind of that golden nugget that might show an accident just occurring. I mean,
Right.
we focus so much on, okay, what was the overall scene? These are low fidelity. So I think I know a lot of agencies are reluctant to record. I don't think we ever want to be recording video, but I don't think it's unreasonable to record every 2 or 5 minutes. Most of those images are going out to the media right now, and there's so much value that can be obtained from those after action. And most of it's positive, right? Most of it, there's many positive things that happen every day, and those positive reinforcements are so valuable.
Outstanding. Thank you. Hey, Jason, I got a couple for you there too, old buddy. Uh, the I'll get to the motorcycles, right? The motor units. Yeah, did you have anything to do with funding for that part, or did they handle that, or was there an MOU? But I think you mentioned MOU for some of the operations, but that's a very creative and unique approach, based on my experience, right, to traffic incident management units. And at first glance, you're thinking, well, geez, that motorcycle doesn't give that trooper much protection once they're on the scene. But the fact is, and anyone who's responded to one, right, you got to fight your way through a queue, right? And sometimes it's almost impossible, like Darcy's example earlier, if it's in a work zone and there are no shoulders, right? I mean, it's almost impossible to get your way through there. But I can see the usefulness of this. What do they do in the wintertime?
Yeah, good question. So they do also have SUVs. They have Tahoes for inclement weather situations. But I do want to touch, Joe, you're exactly right. While we wanted to target motorcycles, which I know to some may seem like a crazy idea, but we did fund it for years when it was not the TIM unit, when it was a standalone um, uh, unit itself, right? But we were very worried about getting through traffic quickly, and also in instances where there are trapped queue, right? So how do we get maybe someone back from the scene to go against the grain of traffic and find the point where we can start turning people around and kind of guide them? And that's much easier for a motorcycle to do than a full-size vehicle, be it car or SUV. So that's why we wanted to target the motorcycle units.
Standing, yeah, great. Hey, and another one popped up here. What guidance might you have there, Jason, for other states or the regions that want to have quantitative outcomes from their TIM programs?
Yeah, so my recommendation, we partner very extensively with our institutions of higher learning. Here, for Maryland DOT, it ends up being the University of Maryland, College Park, where the Cat Lab is, and also Morgan State University are the two institutions we partner with greatly. And the reason we do that, number one, not only do they have more expertise than we do to do these types of analysis, but also we like the fact that it's a, independent party. And you might be thinking, was it really independent if you're paying them? It is, and they've told us. So we did, yep, absolutely. Go Terps. I see it in the chat. So one of the things that has come up in the past is where should we expand? And I mentioned how we do not have patrols in that lower shore. They did an analysis, came back and told us, hey, the value proposition, is not there to expand south. You'd actually be spending more than you're saving, unlike your other areas. So it is a truly independent look. And I think that my encouragement to folks would be to use those institutions of higher learning and understand that having these outcomes to give to your elected officials or give to the leadership in your DOT to make the case that you need to either maintain these programs, start them, or like I said earlier, advance them in these new ways, you can put some data behind that. And the last thing I'll say on that, again, the data, obsessed person that I am, sometimes we get, they tell you, right, bad data into the algorithm is going to push bad data out. So sometimes we keep waiting for the data to be perfect before we start trying to do some type of analysis. And I would encourage everyone to just start using what you have, and that helps you identify the gaps that you have and how you can maybe start plugging them. So that's what I would say to those on the call.
Great, thank you. Yeah, data is what builds your business case, right?
Yep.
Yep, you got to have that data. So now don't go anywhere, Jason. I got one here for Dr. Bullock there. The question is, how long does it take, Doc, for you to pull your data and create the after action reviews that you use for like what you just did today?
I mean, some days we're pulling them as they happen. It's not uncommon for Miles or Justin. We see an after action in the morning. They got it together by the afternoon. Sometimes it's the next day, but rarely more than a couple days, unless we have a big weather event and there's a lot of significant ones. But doing them quick is we just kind of stay on top of it so we don't get behind on them.
All right, back to you, Jason. What are your challenges, right? UAS for traffic incident management inside of tunnels, right? I-95, 895, or close to the airports, Martins or BWI.
Yeah, no, those are challenges. And also, the other challenge for us, our Capital Beltway area, very close to DC with plenty of no-fly zones around that area. So there is that coordination with making sure that there is training given, right? So even though it's tethered, they still have to go through the training and get the pilot's license to fly it and then file their flight plan quickly. Of course, there is that emergency exemption that allows you to quickly fly it without, but certain areas we have to take bit more precaution to not exercise that because we don't want to get into that situation. The closed quarters of tunnels, yes, that can present a challenge as well. But again, we still think that there's more benefit there, even though there are some of those restrictions. And part of this stick grant is to figure out, for us in these areas, where does it make the most sense? It could be that certain areas, have them and others don't because of these restrictions, or have more of them than others. But that's part of what we're looking to get out of this project with the stick grant, is to learn those lessons.
Great, outstanding. Yeah, stick grant, right? Stick grant. It's 125,000 a year, right? So, folks that haven't taken advantage of that, get in on it, right? Even if you don't get your full amount, you'll get something, right? Piece of pie is better than no pie at all, right? So, don't forget about the stick program and get your application. That's a great use for it. Absolutely outstanding. I'm not seeing any other questions popping up in the chat. I believe we've addressed those. So with that, I do believe that I'm going to turn this back over to Kevin. And Kevin, I want to say, thank you for all that you and your team at NOCO does for traffic incident management and our Talking Tim webinars. It's an outstanding program, and you guys do a fantastic job. So I want to make sure I say hats off to you, pal. So with further ado, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, thanks, Joe. I believe that this slide is relatively self-explanatory, but it's my understanding that Joe is moving on from us. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Joe, for the past few years. And you will be sorely missed, at least by me and the rest of the Tim team, for sure.
Surprise. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. This slide was supposed to come to me. However, I'm kind of under the weather. I can't say enough good things about my dear colleague and brother from another mother, as we say, Joe Tebow. We recently lost another icon, Paul Joden, and this Friday is Joe's last day with FHWA's Tim program office. And it goes without being said, you guys have gotten to know Joe and know what an incredibly decorated career Joe's had in the fire service, with over 45 years in the volunteer fire service as a paramedic, a safety officer for NTSB, over at Federal Transit Administration, DC Fire. And as Joe told us early on, when we were interviewing Joe, I'll never forget, he said he and his family, they bleed fire. His daughter is a dispatcher, I believe, with Baltimore County. His son is a sheriff down in, what is it, Joe? South Carolina, North Carolina?
South Carolina.
Yeah, and so the Tebow legacy will live on, but we're sure we're gonna miss you, Joe, so much. Your leadership in all things traffic incident management, the projects that you've led in EVs, EV fires, the whole post-crash care for EMS, just incredible in the 5 short years, just under 5 years, Joe,
Yeah.
with our office. So we'll always have a place in our hearts for you, and your legacy will live on, my brother. So
I greatly appreciate that, Jim. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And although I'm leaving Federal Highway, I'm not done yet. Right.
that's right.
So, I look forward to our paths crossing again in the future. If there's anything I can do to help, please reach out, because as I said, I'm not done yet, just moving on. Right. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to all the great champions that join us month in, month out, and those that don't. who we know that are out there. Traffic incident management save lives every single day with about 16,000 crashes a day. We know it's happening right now as we all sit right here and talk traffic incident management, and everything you all do saves lives. Can you really reach out there and put your finger on it? Not all the time, but we know it's happening. So your efforts are greatly appreciated, and it's been an honor and a pleasure. So thanks to all of you. Hats off to you.
Yes, sir. Well said, Joe. So once again, thanks to all our presenters, phenomenal presentations, as Joe said, and to Kevin and Vishali and the team, our support, and we can't do it without you. Our job is not over. We still have a long way to go and a lot of lives to save. So keep doing great things, everyone, and take care of yourselves. God bless. Be safe.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jim. Tough to follow that, but I have been tasked with reminding attendees to about the upcoming PSE webinar, part 2 of the series on the New York and New Jersey's FIFA World Cup 26 planning, as well as the planning to post-event debrief for 2025 presidential inauguration. You can register and see more information at the website here, transportationops.org/PSE, as well as the call for any photos associated with a planned special event that you may have in your library. Please forward them on to my email attached here. Again, I will further add to what Joe and Jim said in that thank you to the presenters, and thank you all for joining us. And with that, that'll be the end of this webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy today.
Take care.